So there's a moment when Tali McGrath is about to take the catch of Jemimah Rodrigues, and you look at Alyssa Healy, and she's like sort of casually, confidently stepping towards the bowler, right? Thinking this is going to be a wicket and we will go down and we will celebrate this because this is what we do. We are the Australian women's cricket team. We are the Harlem Globetrotters. We don't lose games. We're certainly not going to lose this one, even though we've made it more difficult than we need to. And she gets like a step and a half. And then suddenly the ball just like goes through McGrath's hand. And if you look, it's not even just her. Annabelle Sutherland's doing the same sort of casual walk, right? They're not panicked. They're behind in the game, and India's playing incredible cricket, but they're like, eventually something's going to happen and it's going to break for us and we're going to win this game. That's the sort of confidence you get when you almost never lose cricket games. When your entire career is just winning cricket games, that's the sort of thing that ends up happening. You think to yourself, well, we could lose, but we're not going to lose because someone will play, take an incredible catch, or there'll be a run out of nowhere, or, a back of the hand slow ball hit straight up in the air, or we'll get an LBW. This is what they believe. And they're not wrong to do so. The Australian women's cricket team has been so dominant for so long that it's almost shocking when they lose. And so Alyssa Healy is expecting Tali McGrath to take what is an incredibly easy catch. But she didn't. And because of that, India did probably one of the best semi-final chases or knockout chases you will ever see. That was an extraordinary match.
This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of the community that makes content like this, head over now.
So in 2017, I went to Derby. And I'll be honest, in my whole professional career covering cricket in England, I haven't actually gone to Derby all that much. But I was there that particular year because the Women's World Cup was on. And Australia were playing India. And as always, we assumed the Australian women would win. And then Harmanpreet comes out. And it was such a weird day too, because I remember for whatever reason, we were, working for Cricinfo, and it was the day that Cricinfo changed their design. So it was incredibly poorly timed. And so the website wasn't working correctly. Everyone on Twitter was asking us questions about it. We were trying to work out how we could do our jobs correctly. And while all this was happening, Australia was being absolutely slogged into tiny pieces by Harmanpreet Kaur. It was still to this day one of the more surprising innings I've ever seen. In a lifetime of covering cricket, I'd never not remember the Harmanpreet one. Like, I'll remember how the press box chairs felt. I still remember the noise from that game when one of the balls actually hit the press box. Like, it made a noise. There's something about that game, the way that the crowd reacted to it and everything else, that has always stuck with me. But more than that, it's not just about how it made me feel. That's the game that really changes women's cricket forever, right? Harmanpreet going absolutely nuts is what changes everything. You can see the ratings. You can see Cricinfo suddenly changing their website and then like re-crashing again because they weren't ready for the amount of traffic they were going to get on that day. It was watching people learn about women's cricket in real time. And it was breathtaking and dynamic. But when you go back to the innings, it is just someone slogging to the leg side a lot. And Harmanpreet has more shots than that. But on that particular day, she was feeling herself. She decided that she could clear that ground, and she just went for it time and time again. And it was sort of messy and chaotic. And I remember talking to the Australian team in the press conference, and I was trying to say, did you underestimate India? It felt like at times watching them that they actually didn't have game plans for the opposition because they were just so much better than everyone else. And I was trying to get that out of Matthew Mott and Meg Lanning and trying to get them to talk about how they could possibly have lost this game. But the look on Matthew Mott's face specifically was, no, we lost this because Harmanpreet just did this incredible thing, right? You fast forward to this game, and that's not really what happens, right? Australia make well over 300. So it isn't one of those situations where like one Indian player got away. And you could certainly say that Australia should have made 20 more. I would argue they should have made 40 more. And to be honest, at one stage I was like, if Phoebe Litchfield keeps going, they might get towards 400 here, right? With the hitters at the other end and her scoring so fast. And then India just kept getting wickets. And we have said from the very start of this tournament, when we're doing analysis or when we're doing live shows or whatever else, the only way to stop Australia batting is to get wickets. Their batting lineup is absolutely bananas, right? The number 10 for them, Alana King or Kim Garth, whoever they pick at number 10, could bat at number 6 or 7 for some of these other World Cup teams. That's how good their batting actually is, right? There are very few international teams in the history of the game who have managed to have batting that deep. Men's, women's, anything, right? The ability to bat at number 9, number 10 is just phenomenal. But sometimes when teams do that, like if you go back to perhaps the old South African men's team in the 90s, right? There's a trade-off. And the trade-off is you don't really have as many frontline bowlers as you should need, right? You packed so many all-rounders in, you don't have frontline bowlers. But the thing with the Australian team is Ashley Gardner, Annabelle Sutherland are both frontline bowlers, and Kim Garth would be batting way higher in other teams, right? And so they end up with this thing where there's no chop out. There's no respite. Yeah, Talia McGrath sometimes has a bit of a rough day with the ball. She gets sprayed around a little bit. They've got 7 other options to make up their overs. There's always other options. They've got finger spin. They've got wrist spin. They swing it at the top. They're not maybe the best bowling attack that this team has ever had, but it's the deepest and it's ridiculously talented, like on every single level. So you have this Australian team that has all this bowling depth and all this batting depth. And the only way to beat them is, I suppose, exactly what India showed us today, which is find a way to take their wickets. And you go back and you have a look at it, and Australia was so far in front that I don't even think the Indian fans realised what was happening. But every time India took a wicket, there was just another slowdown. There was just a moment, and they piled up enough wickets that in the end, Australia didn't finish out their overs. Now, they practically finished out their overs, but there was a big squeeze on the end of that game. And realistically, it's the difference between putting on a total that I'm just not sure India would have been able to chase, just physically would have been able to chase. It would have been on the minds of their batters all the way through. Getting themselves into a position of like, well, if we don't lose early wickets, we could do this. And the other flaw that the Australian team has had, and we've been talking about for quite some time, is that they don't always take early wickets. And India is absolutely brilliant at, their top order making big chunks of runs. And this Indian team has just beaten Australia without their opening bat, right? They're down a player and they still managed to put on huge runs at the top and put that pressure back on Australia. And look at what the pressure did. I mean, you saw the pressure play with both teams at different times, right? Like India dropped a really easy catch early on. There was certainly that. But look at what happened with Australia. There were like head high full tosses. When the ball got a bit dewy, it was like just squeezing out of their fingers. They didn't field as well as they usually did. Even when they got to balls, it felt like they would get to the balls in the same way that they normally would, but they wouldn't quite get them. India just kept the pressure on and kept the pressure on, which is what they did with the ball. It just doesn't look like that because that was such a flat wicket. You made a lot of runs anyway. But once you saw it with the bat, you were like, Australia just needs wickets here. And I kept waiting for the claps, maybe not even a massive one, but just like a mini one. And India never allowed it. And they were in such control of that, even when they were behind the rate. And I think that's a really, really interesting thing to be, where you're comfortable enough in your own skin against the best team in the world to be like, no, we don't have to be ahead of the rate here. We have Rishi Ghosh later on. We can just make sure that we're within touching distance and see what happens. And we saw what happened. That Talia McGrath catch was a perfect example that Australia just wasn't on their game. There was another point, which Jemimah Rodrigues was sitting on the pitch on her ass. Australia could not run her out. That's the kind of day, the kind of game. And you don't get many from Australia. And generally, even in this tournament, when they didn't play at their best, and I don't think they were at their best, even though they're unbeaten, I don't think they were actually at their best all that often. They gave opposition teams quite a few chances of beating them. But when you go back and you look at this tournament, they would give you one chance, and if you didn't take it straight away, that was it, and they would end you. Well, in this particular case, India really didn't give Australia many chances, and on the very few that they did, it didn't work. And so you have Alyssa Healy expecting the Talia McGrath catch to happen. You have Alyssa Healy literally commentating, saying, throw the ball to me, throw the ball to me, while Rodrigues is sitting on her ass in the middle of the wicket. And you have that other moment where Alana King gets a top edge and it goes flying up in the air and goes so high. And then Alyssa Healy comes over to take what is one of the most routine catches of all time. And I say that in the same match that Talia McGrath dropped one of those. But it was one of the simplest catches ever, and Australia let it go. India almost didn't do anything wrong in this game. They kept themselves in it time and time again. But when they tried to give it back to Australia, Australia wasn't ready. The best team in the world had chances to win this game, but the other team played magnificently. Look at that batting card. It is a thing of beauty and a joy forever. And because of that, India is in the World Cup final.
Are you as chronically online as Moses Enriquez? Then here's another video for you. Or if you also like books and stuff, you can buy my new one on the art of batting. If you loved this video, hit the bell icon to be notified for more.